Algebra 2, Lesson 9 is all about percent word problems. And we start out just reviewing percent. Percent means per 100 or out of 100. Okay, so to change a percent to a fraction or a decimal, we divide by 100. And then we have a table here just to do a few. 50% as a decimal. Okay, when you divide 50 by 100, that moves the decimal 2 places to the left, so that is 0.50 or 0.5. And as a fraction, 50 over 100, and then that reduces to 1/2. You already knew that one, but that was a simple way to show how it's done for the ones you might not know. For changing 36% to a decimal, again, you just move the decimal 2 places to the left, because that's what happens every time when you divide by 100. If you're doing a fraction, that is 36 over 100. And then these are both even, so you need to reduce. In fact, I noticed they both divide by 4. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then 9 over 25 does not reduce, so that's simplified. 82%, again, that's 0.82, 82 hundredths. And then we write 82 hundredths as a fraction over here. Again, they're both even. Let's divide them both by 2. And that doesn't reduce any further. Now, for 1/2%, that is the same as 0.5%, because we know 1/2 is the same as 0.5. And so, for the decimal, we would move this decimal 2 places to the left, and that is 0.005. 5/10 divided by 100 is 5/1000. And then to write it as a fraction, okay, so we have 1/2 divided by 100, basically. So, whoops, got ahead of myself. That's the same as times 1 over 100. And so we have 1 over 200. And then 192%. Again, move the decimal 2 places to the left. That's 1.92 as a decimal. 192 over 100 for our fraction. These both are even again, so I can divide by 2. I think that's going to give me 96. Both even again, so apparently I could have divided by 4. But we'll go ahead and divide these by 2 again. And 2 into that is going to be 48. 2 into that is 25. And then that doesn't reduce any further, so that's it. But like the title says, we're doing word problems this time, so let's take a look at one. There are 2 examples in this lesson that are very good examples of the 2 different kinds of percent word problems you'll see the most of. So, for example 1, the wood nymphs and the maids gambled and frolicked before the banquet began. Okay. If 70% of those present were wood nymphs and 120 maids were present, how many wood nymphs came to the banquet? So we have these 2 boxes here just for an example of diagramming. Making a drawing of your problem sometimes can help you visualize things so you're sure you know what's going on. So if you just take a moment and do that, when you do this, probably 1 box is going to be sufficient, but just to explain what's going on, if the box represents 100% of the people attending, or, well, nymphs and maids. Okay, so this is our total. It's 100%, everybody that attended in this case. And this is telling us 70% were wood nymphs. Okay, so I'm going to take this box that represents everybody. 70 is more than half. I'm going to make this my 70%. And if this is supposed to total 100%, that means this one has to be 30%. 70% were the wood nymphs. I'm just going to write nymphs. which means 30% were the maids. Okay. It also tells us that there were 120 maids. Okay, so I know that. They want to know how many wood nymphs. Okay, so we need to try to figure this out. What we can do is, from the information we have, find out the total number that we're attending, and then we can subtract at the end. Okay, so 30% of the total, I'm going to use a fraction. If you prefer decimals, you may do that. 30% is 30 out of 100 of the total in attendance, I'm going to use T for total, equals how many maids there were, which is 120. Okay, so then I just multiply both sides by the reciprocal of this fraction, which first I'm going to reduce, at least divide them both by 10. That's all you can do for this one. So 3 over 10, we multiply both sides by 10 over 3, because we need 1t. That way the 10s and the 3s cancel. Over here we can cross cancel as well. 3 goes into 12 4 times, so it goes into 120 40 times. And then we have t equals 40 times 10, which is 400. That is not my answer. They want to know how many wood nymphs. This was the total. So from that, I subtract the number of maids. So a box like this can help you visualize what's going on and help you organize all your information from the problem. I do recommend that. That's how you do that. You'll see one very much like this in the problem set. And then on the back of your note paper, we have example 2. And for this one, it's a cornucopian harvest. The harvest was cornucopian, as it was 120% greater than last year. If the yield was 140,800 bushels, how many bushels were harvested last year? Okay, so my first box that I have for you here is for last year's harvest. I'm just going to write last year. Okay, and this year's was so much more than that. It's not just 120% of last year's harvest, it's 120% greater. So it's last year plus 120% of last year. Okay, so that's why you have the light lines on your paper. Each, like there's a full box representing last year's harvest, there's a full box with the same number, and then there's a little sliver for the extra 20%. Okay, so what's actually happening is we have last year plus another last year plus a little more. So what we're going to be doing is, well, again, this is 100%. Here's 100%, because it's the same amount. And then here's 120 additional, this plus the sliver. So what we're really going to do is 220% of last year's harvest. So when you see this percent greater on these problems, you're adding 100 to the 120. But again, I recommend making a diagram. It'll help you to visualize that. You just have to really pay attention to those little words. So what we have is, let's see, 220% of last year equals this year. And I'm just going to write the words last year, or maybe some abbreviations. 220%, 220 over 100, of last year equals this year. Okay, last in this. What they tell us, okay, they want to know last year, so this is this year. So what we have is 220, I could have reduced that. It'll reduce more, but let's just do this for now. 22 over 10 times last year is our variable, because that's what we're looking for, equals this year, 140,800. Now we have a fraction times our variable, so again, we multiply by the reciprocal. And then we reduce that. And you are allowed to use calculators, but we can probably just do this by ourselves. Let's see. So I know 2 goes into both of these, right? So that'll give me 11 down here. And when I divide this by 2, that's 70400. And then we ought to see if 11 will go evenly into that. For now, I'm going to write 704,000, because multiplying this 10 times that over. And I went and grabbed a calculator quick. We have 64,000 last year. 64,000 bushels last year. Okay, that is all we have for lesson 9.